I'm Dana Fry, and I have the kids call me Dr. Fry because I have my doctorate in education.
As Dr. Fry has walked into her classroom every day for the past 30 years, she's had much more than math, reading, and writing on her mind.
People come from backgrounds where education isn't important or isn't accessible or wasn't a good experience. And people pass that down to their kids sometimes. People come from backgrounds where they come to school hungry, or they come to school in pain because they have cavities, what have you. So to reach kids exactly where they are, accept them where they are, and then move forward from there.
Dana Fry earned her Doctorate of Education in Leadership for Social Justice in 2014. Not for the sake of a promotion or a job requirement, but for a simple yet profound reason.
I went through the doctorate program, one, just for my own purposes, because I love reading and I love education, so it was just for me.
She'll tell you she's a lifelong learner, but she's quite possibly also a lifelong teacher, as her heart is and always has been inside the classroom. So much so that even after becoming an assistant principal at Burton Valley School, she left the role after just a few years to return to her students.
Every day, I'm happy to come to work and happy to think about the kids when I go home. Sometimes something will be stuck with me, like, oh, that didn't work out really well with that student, or, oh, I wasn't as patient as I should have been. And it helps me think through when that arises again, either with that same student or another student, how will I react differently? And then how do I teach the kids to study failure? And look at failure as an opportunity, because failure isn't an end, it's an opportunity.
What does Dr. Fry bring to her classroom as a result of being a lifelong learner?
I bring different experiences for girls to understand that they're not down these single track roads to being a nurse or being a teacher, the typical female roles that we expect girls to go into. So I've tried to bring a lot of engineering projects to the classroom to show girls that they are good at math, they do have spatial recognition skills, and that they can do things that are typically seen as very male roles. And hopefully I'm opening up their minds to anything, taking them out of a single track if maybe that's what they might have been in.
What is it that Dr. Fry brings to her classroom that's given her a reputation as both a strict and an outstanding teacher that touches hearts and minds?
At the end of the gold rush, I did a scavenger hunt. So instead of doing a test where you sit down and I ask you who found this, who did that, and you had to fill in the answers, they had to answer questions in order to get the next clue to go to the next station. And it was just all about answering 49er questions. So it was like a test, but it was running around the playground and figuring out clues, coming back, telling me the answer, getting the next clue, which was in the form of a rhyme. So they had to figure out the rhyme. That had a lot of skills in it too. And they said, we've never, ever done anything like this before. That's where the creativity part comes in, because I know when I'm getting bored, the kids are getting bored. How do I do it so that I'm re-enthused again?
The Dr. Fry that I'd known about just as an entity who looked like a man.
The man.
I imagine this very strict man.
Well, and that's my reputation, as being very strict. My answer to that is that kids need boundaries, and they don't always get them at home. And it makes them feel safe, that they know I can go up to here, and if I go over that boundary, there are repercussions, and I can see other people going over those boundaries, and I can see them facing the consequences. Then I have to think, do I want to go over that boundary? Is it worth it? That's how we have to live our life.
After 30 years in the classroom, Dr. Fry is leaving elementary school, along with her fourth graders in May 2022. She considered retiring a year earlier, but didn't want to leave without working alongside her students inside the classroom instead of through a screen. What I noticed when spending a little time with her students in room 26 is that they seem to be less excited for summer break than I expected them to be, and more sad than I expected them to be about parting ways with their teacher. In fact, on the day I visited, it was Coach Coco Day, and rather than rushing to the playground for relays, dancing contests, sports, fun, and treats, they lined up to pay gratitude to their teacher, a woman that many of them admit they were afraid to work with until they got to her classroom.
What I like most about Dr. Fry is she's really funny, and I love when she does her voices when she's reading books. And I love how every time she reads a book, she reads it and then she lets us watch the movie.
What's the most important lesson you learned from her?
Probably when something's confusing, just use common sense.
My name is Espy, and I'm in room 26, Dr. Fry's class. The most thing I really like about Dr. Fry is that she's really kind and she's funny also. She always says to use common sense, but when she's reading a book, she has really funny voices, and she helps me with math a lot, and I'm going to miss her when she retires.
What's the most important lesson you learned about yourself from her work?
Well, I learned stuff like maybe you should just work harder, and just don't give up until you try.
Sophia. And what I learned from Dr. Fry, and he always said it, common sense.
My name is Tristan, and I like how she's always so funny.
And what's the most important thing that you learned from her?
Probably fractions, because I knew nothing about fractions at first.
And what are you going to miss most about her?
I'm going to miss just her overall at the school. I'm Caroline.
And what's your favorite thing about having Dr. Fry as a teacher?
Well, she's very nice and funny, and she teaches us so many things all throughout the year, and she's very good at art. She's the best teacher I've ever had at kickball. She's very, very good at kickball.
And what are you going to miss most about her?
She's very on top of everything. She's not too sweet, and I think she was just
right?
Yeah, she's the best teacher. She's the best teacher I've ever had.
Really? What's your name?
EJ.
EJ, why is she the best teacher you've ever had?
Because most of my teachers were mean, and she's strict but nice.
Strict but nice?
Yeah.
What's the most important lesson you learned from her?
How to play kickball, maybe. She taught us a lot, really advanced math, geometry, algebra, all those high school stuff. And it actually makes sense because she teaches us really well.
What are you going to miss most about her?
Her screams. When she reads books to us, she always does little voices for the people, and it's really funny.
She's really funny. I'm Maya. In the morning, we always do Would You Rather. Sometimes it's not boring doing attendance. I'm Harper, and the best thing about Dr. Fry, she's my favorite teacher, and she always plays kickball and does these fun activities with us. I'm Sloan, and my favorite thing about Dr. Fry is how patient she is. She's really motivated me to be a better student in class.
What's the most important thing you've learned about yourself from having her as a teacher?
How to respect others really nicely, and I think I've really improved on math during this year.
My name is Omar, and my favorite thing about Dr. Fry is that she's a really good and kind teacher.
What are you going to miss most about her?
Probably kickball.
My name is Tate, and my favorite thing about Dr. Fry is probably that she's really funny and she makes learning a breeze.
What's the most important thing she taught you about yourself?
I learned that don't really judge a book by its cover, because at the start I kind of thought she was not really.
You thought she was maybe too strict, and
yeah,
then you got to know her?
And I got to know her, and then.
So you learned not to judge a book by its cover?
Yeah.
That's amazing. What is the most important thing you learned?
Yeah, to never judge a book by its cover.
After spending an hour with Dr. Fry, parenting a 4th grade daughter from her class, and hanging out with her students, it seems pretty apparent that Dr. Fry is planting the seeds for lessons that will serve these children for a lifetime. She says she doesn't always know the impact she's made, but every once in a while, she hears a story from one of her former students that keeps her going.
And I had a boy when I taught in San Leandro, and he came back in high school, and he was on his way to college, and he said, I just want to thank you, because when I was in your class, I struggled, and you told me that I was a really, really good writer, and he goes, I took that to heart, and I really worked hard on writing, and he goes, I'm going to college to be a reporter.
And while there are many things that the students who've gone through Dr. Dana Fry's class have learned, I'm going to share 10 of my favorites that I learned after just a few hours. First and foremost, use common sense.
In life, when something bad happens, even if it's really small, like I left something at home and I really need it, how do you solve that problem? Use some common sense.
This sounds like what you're describing is find agency in everything, right?
Right. Go ask somebody, use your words, use the skills that you have. Don't be afraid.
Second, third, and fourth.
A whole lot of patience, creativity, and flexibility.
Be patient, be creative, and be flexible. Fifth, don't accept that by virtue of being a girl or a boy or a person of another gender identity that you can or can't do something.
I wrote my dissertation on girls and math because so often we hear from girls this giveaway of I'm not good at math. And it's so sad because it's a giveaway, it's a give up. If I say I'm not good at math, I'm a girl, and everybody will be like, yeah, and they won't expect anything from you. So I did 2 study groups, and I did them here. At lunchtime, I had a math club, and it was all based on problem solving. One was an all-girl group, and one was a co-ed group, because I wanted to see if girls would step up more if there were not the boys that were being more aggressive and assertive in answering math, or when working in groups, sometimes girls still step back and let boys take over. What would happen if it was just girls? It just showed me that girls won't do better in just a completely girls environment, that they do just as well either way.
Sixth, ask for what you need and want.
The answer may be no a lot, but it may be yes one time or more times than you would expect. But you don't know if you don't ask.
This is a lesson that Dr. Fry taught while granting land during the California Rancho Project.
They have no idea how much land is needed to raise cattle and to build a rancho and all of that. So when SB came up with this large amount, everybody was shocked because people are asking for 10 acres, 50 acres, and she came with this enormous amount. So I saved hers for the last. And I said, oh, here's your 10, here's your 50, here's your 40, here's this, and then here's SB's enormous amount. And people were like, what? I didn't know I could ask for that much. It's like, you don't know
Until you do it.
until you ask. Don't be afraid of the answer no.
Seventh, don't be afraid to think outside the box.
That's where the creativity part comes in, because
Yeah.
you can pencil paper and read a book from August 1st to May 30th. But I know when I'm getting bored, the kids are getting bored.
Eighth, practice being the best version of yourself.
Be honest and just say what you did, and then let's learn a better response. They made you mad. Got it. You're allowed to be mad. What's a better response than what you did? Let's practice something.
Ninth, be resilient.
It's what I tell parents when they come in with a child and say, my child's being bullied. I can't follow that child around on the playground and be their guardian. So that child has to learn skills. So I say, practice at home. When somebody says something to you, how are you going to respond? Because what that person wants is a reaction. And they love it when you cry or when you run away. That's what they're looking for. But what if you said something like, so? That's not very satisfying. And then go home and practice that with your parents.
10th, never stop learning.
Reading and education was just always something that we were exposed to and something that was important to us. So after my bachelor's degree and getting my teaching credential, I went back and got my master's degree and just stayed on.
Even though Dr. Fry isn't coming back to Lafayette Elementary School in the fall, she's already learning her next thing as she begins a new gig as a wine ambassador in Livermore.
I work at Fenestra. You know, you meet all kinds of people and you talk about wine, so it's something new for me to learn because I don't know very much about wine.
And she might even make her way back to the community college classroom to remind college students how to hone some of the same skills she's introduced to her fourth graders.
I'd really love to be the teacher that teaches the writing class that the kids have to take because they didn't do very well on the writing test, to help build up their confidence and their skills.
When Dr. Dana Fry's fourth grade students of 2022 and all the others that have come before them look back, there's one simple thing she hopes they'll carry with them.
I hope they look back and remember me as someone that let them be themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's hard these days. There's a lot of changes and a lot of emotion about that. So I hope they look back and say it was the one place I felt safe to be myself.
And from all the students in room 26,
We're going to miss you, Dr. Fry.
bye.